Well, my name's Steele Wiley. I am Cal's only grandson. Yeah, so far, okay. um, and to me, he was Papa, and Flo to y'all, to me, she is Mimi. So I just want to thank everyone for coming. I'm sure you were all very special to Papa and Cal. And Mimi asked me to be the MC, and so I accepted. And so I will be helping everyone today. What we're going to do is we're going to have everyone come up if you want to. Anyone and everyone is welcome. They'll just come stand over here and speak if you want. Families in no particular order. Kim and Gary are going to finish us off. And we're recording everything. So I'll put one of these little clips on you, and we'll just rotate in and out of everyone talking. Let me see if there's anything else I'm forgetting. All right, I don't think so. So I'm going to start us off talking a little bit about Papa. Ooh. So I saw Papa in a very special way, different than most of you. He was my grandpa. He got the diagnosis, I think it was 19 years ago, and I did not understand what Parkinson's was for a very, very long time. The effort he put in to do little things, I remember he'd go out in the yard and throw football with me. We'd go golfing, and we'd play Squeak. And I will tell you, if y'all don't know what Squeak is, it's a very fast-paced card game. I'm sure y'all know. And obviously, Papa wasn't the fastest, but I've never seen someone, so it's a game where you race to put down cards, and I've never seen someone throw cards more accurately. I mean, the guy would beat me every time by throwing cards. So, and now I realize how special all of that was. And just like Squeak, same with golf. If you put a tournament of all golfers with Parkinson's together, I think you would have had a grand slam, three-peat the Masters, everything. But, I mean, the truth of all of it is he didn't have to be that strong. Many would crumble after that diagnosis and lose their way of life. But that's not what Papa did, and he never let that happen. And I think the reason it took me so long to grasp really what Parkinson's was and the seriousness of what it would become was because I never once heard him complain about it. Never. I just saw Papa as my granddad, and I didn't even know he had a problem. Papa was a man of obsessions. Bridge, golf, Broncos, Nuggets, you name it. I'm lucky to share a couple of those obsessions with him. And he's really the one that got me into golf. Yeah, I came up here. I had a trip. I'd come once a week, every other summer. And I came to Denver one time, and I just started playing golf. And I liked it, and it was fun. And just the specialness of this week I can't explain, and it's why golf is so special to me now. Mimi and Papa had a tee time lined up for me every single day. Papa said, "Steele, make sure you wear golf clothes on the airplane because we're going to play right after we pick you up." I mean, if that's not Papa, So we get off. Mimi's teaching me all about the rules, and I'm like shooting 120. I have no plans of doing anything with golf. I've been basketball my whole life. And Papa's coaching me, and amazing teacher. it's amazing the way he says things that just make sense. So Papa and I really connected over golf. And Mimi, I know this is going to resonate with you because it cost us a few eye rolls every now and then. I would call Mimi and Papa after a good tournament, and it would be awesome to talk to them. And then I would call them sometimes when it wasn't a tournament and I just wanted to talk to them. And Papa would be quiet. As you all know, Papa was a little more reserved. But as soon as Mimi and I said goodbye and we're about to hang up, Papa dives into a 5-minute golf lesson. I mean, without fail, I would tell my friends, I would say, watch, I'm going to try and hang up. And yeah, Mimi's, I can hear, Cal, he doesn't want to hear that. And sometimes it was true, but, you know, I cherished it. And everything he's ever told me has just been the best advice, golf and in life. So he was just such a good teacher. I actually shot my lowest round in my last day of the state tournament, and I got to share it with Papa. He went into a medically induced coma, as I'm sure some of y'all know, and I got to talk him through my round while he was under that. And that was special, and he woke up and said he remembered everything. And those last few, that was the last couple days I saw Papa, and it was so special. I mean, he was such a trooper till the end, and he didn't lose his sense of humor or a thing. I remember when he first woke up from his coma, I could see something in his eyes when he first woke up. He looked right at Mimi, and it was like he was seeing her for the first time, and that she was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. He has the same twinkle in his eye when he looks at her that he does when he has a joke. When he laughs at it before the punchline's over. And no joke, 3 minutes later, he's singing Love by Nat King Cole with the croakiest voice because he'd had a tube down his throat for 2 days. And it's the best singing I've ever heard. And then he follows it up by doing 30 reps of his Parkinson's exercise that no one told him to do. He just decided to. And that just truly shows what a fighter he was. And I mean, even in that 30 minutes after waking up, how he never lost his way of life, ever. He was always fighting silently and enjoying life to the fullest. I hope someday to be half the man he was. I love you, Papa. Thank you. All right, so now everyone is welcome to come up. I'll just put the clip on you. I love stories. I know Dal has one, and I'm making him tell it. But everyone can come up when they're ready. Families in no order. So. And if you just want to come over here when you feel like you want to talk, I can help get you set up and everything. Thank you.
I can't believe I got to follow that. But, so I don't know. I think he gets all that from his mom, to speak like that. But sorry, just give me a sec. I was trying not to look at my wife, and I did. So I'm Mike Wiley. I'm Kim's husband, and very honored to be Cal's son-in-law. I couldn't have asked for a better one. I mean, he's an amazing role model. He was a dedicated and devoted husband to Flo, amazing father to his kids, Gary and Kim, and a wonderful grandfather to our kids, Steele and Akina. And the father-daughter relationship is something to be envied by everyone. I love when Kim told me a story when Cal was in the hospital, and Kim and Gary were spending a lot of time together, obviously hugging and telling stories. And Gary said, "You know, Kim, Dad loved you 105%. You loved me 100%. He loved you 105%. 106. Yeah, 106. And he said, you know what? I'm okay with that." And that says a lot about Gary. I'll tell you that right there. So, as many of you know or have heard, Cal had a strong passion for food. I mean, I was always amazed that he could recall meals from like the last 80 years. But be like, you know, the best BLT I had was in 1972 in New Mexico at Bill's Cafe. Like Elvis Presley was playing on the jukebox, and it was 80 degrees outside. So I was like, I can't remember what I did last week. You know, so on summer trips to Breckenridge, we would have dinner and ask questions, you know, about favorite things. We were always afraid to ask him about his favorite food because we didn't think we had enough time. You know, and my son is a little bit like Cal, in that if you ask him about his round of golf, when he was talking about telling Cal's round of golf, I'm sure it took about an hour. Still is like, hey, how was your round? It's not, oh, I shot a 75, it was great. It was, so I wasn't sure if I was going to hit my 3-wood or my driver on the first hole. You know. Yeah. So, but still, don't ever change. We love it. So, and then if for the record, if my memory is correct, his favorite movie was The Sting. His favorite book was Charm School, although that might have been Flo's too. But his best memory as a child was going to the 1955 World Series for the Yankees playing the Brooklyn Dodgers, and went with his grandpa, and he went to all 7 games. So it was really, these a Subway series back then. So back to food. Meals were one thing, but desserts were a whole other level. You know, Cal never met a milkshake or a cookie or ice cream that he didn't like. When, you know, I was driving up to Beaver Creek, and he's like, "Oh, you got to stop at Empire. There's this little place that serve ice cream called Empire Dairy King." So, you know, yeah. So if next time you're heading to the mountains, stop off at Empire. It's a quick stop and get some ice cream. But where Cal and I really bonded was over our love for breakfast. Typically, you know, when we were visiting either here or he was in Dallas, you know, everybody would sleep in. So that's when really Cal and I got our one-to-one time to really kind of bond, talking about golf and fishing, family. Football was always a huge thing that we would talk about. And initially, he would make breakfast in the beginning, and it was interesting. I'm kind of a purist when it comes to my scrambled eggs. I just like the scrambled egg. But Cal would take whatever he could find leftovers in the fridge and throw them into the scrambled eggs. So initially, I was like, "Whoa, what's going on?" But so having Chinese food with your scrambled eggs, you should try it. It's really good. So I was really impressed. So, but one of the best memories that I had with Cal was playing golf. And this is just over, probably just under 2 years ago, maybe less. But they were in Dallas, and it was me, Cal, Steele, and Gary. And I'd kind of set it up with my club because, you know, Cal, bless his heart, took time to play golf. But when he had time, he could hit it very well. It's really absolutely amazing. And so he set it up, and we kind of had a nice buffer, and he could just take his time and play. And every now and then his ball might miraculously make its way into the fairway or out of the bunker from Gary or Steele. But after the round, he told me it's one of the greatest days of his life. Just think we take things for granted sometimes. So it's such a mixture of joy and sadness. And that because I think he knew he might not get that opportunity again. So just amazing. But I look forward to the day of being in heaven playing golf with him again. Love and miss you, Cal.
Okay, this is a lot of people. I'm a little nervous. You can't see me? Oh, I was kind of worried about that. Should I stand right here? Okay. I'm Akina Wiley. I am Cal's granddaughter, but I call him Papa. Papa loved many, many things in his life. He loved his family, he loved golf, he loved bridge, and which we've talked about, he loves food. One of the memories I have of Papa is where we went to dinner and we're driving home. And just so you guys know, I'm not very good at telling stories, so bear with me. Okay, so we were driving home from dinner, and sorry, I'm not good at telling stories. Okay, and so we were driving home, and whoever was driving, I think it was my dad, he was trying to put in the directions to go home, and Papa goes, "Oh no, you don't need the directions." And my dad's like, "Why?" And he's like, "Oh, well, I know a shortcut. I know a way." So he starts driving, and he's like, "Okay, now you take a turn here." And then he's like, "Go straight." And then you turn here. And somehow, we don't arrive home. We arrive to Dairy Queen. And we're like, "Papa, this isn't home." And he's always got that little smirk on his face. And then he gets the biggest thing on the menu. So yeah, no, I was always very, very happy about that because I love food. Now I know where I got it from, Papa. But yeah, so Papa loved many things, but one thing that he loved the most is Mimi. There are many reasons to believe in this world that love doesn't exist. Everyone's gone through a lot of pain in life, and a lot of things are out there that make us sometimes think that love isn't real. But the way Papa loved Mimi makes me 100% believe that love truly does exist. When they, how they always say through sickness and through health, Mimi and Papa fully lived by that. They loved each other so much, and I hope one day that I can find somebody to love as much as they loved each other. So my standards are pretty high. Hopefully I'll find somebody. I don't know if I will. Okay, I'm done.
I thought you said you weren't good at telling stories. I was. All right, if you're thinking you don't want to sit there and wait super long, I set a chair up. So someone's got to come talk after Ed.
Thank you. It won't be super long. I didn't come here to brag or gloat, but I'm going to. Because I learned recently that I was the last person to play bridge with Cal Newlin. That's the way I feel about it. I see the world divided into two basic groups, just like here. Bridge players and non-bridge players. I come from the bridge playing group, but I didn't come to comment on Cal's bridge skills, prodigious as they are. I came to talk about his humanity. I had the privilege of playing weekly with Cal for the last, year plus. And I have to diverge for the non-bridge players in the group with a definition. And the definition is boneheaded bid. A boneheaded bid is just like a boneheaded anything in the rest of life. It's something you shouldn't do. You do anyway. You know you shouldn't do it. And after you do it, you say, why did I do that? I can't count over the past year of playing with Cal how many boneheaded bids I made. But I can count how many times he criticized me for it. And that number is 0. An hour later, maybe, he would say something like, well, you could have bid. Thanks, yeah, that's a good idea. So thank you, sir, for your humanity.
I'm Kendall Mullins. My mom, Kay, is Cal's sister. Just speaking real quick, like you warned me, just about Cal as a family man and the special memories that we hold as a family. Crawling under the table at Grammys and oh, thanks, Mom. Hi, Mom. So, Cal was just pretty amazing, and I'll speak to the Broncos. We've talked about food and bridge and, meeting behind Section 105 at halftime. I know lots of us have done that. It's been a while. I got kicked out by my husband, so I don't go as often as I used to see Uncle Cal, but I have, my husband kicked me out, and I have Gary to thank for introducing me to my husband. So, just love you guys, and family's the very best. That's all I have to say.
Okay, you stay here.
Oh, okay, I'll save my mom. Oh.
I'm Kay Blue, Cal's sister, and this is just touching to see the turnout for my brother. I mean, it just says so much about who he was, what kind of person he was. Cal was, there were 3.5 years apart. We were 3.5 years apart. And when I was growing up, we didn't have a lot of, there weren't a lot of sports for women. So I spent a lot of time watching my brother pitch, swim. Let's see, what else did he have? Yeah, I even got an award one time for perfect attendance for his football games. I have 3 fond memories, many memories, but the 3 that stick out the most. One day my brother said, would you like to go with Dick and me to the GAC swimming? So that was, that was an ordeal. I got to tag along with my brother and his friend and took the bus down to the Dimmer Athletic Club, and I got to swim. And I still remember that. I was just touched by that. We learned how to play Monopoly in California, and we got home and had marathon Monopoly games. We always broke the bank, so I was happy that he didn't beat me, that we broke the bank. he was just, I admire his qualities, he was a student of every interest he had. He also was a great husband, father, brother, son, so caring to my mother when she was ill. He would just be missed by all of you, and we love you, Cal. Thank you for all the fond memories.
Hi, my name is Dal DeVries. Judy and I met Flo and Cal probably in the late 70s. And once we retired, we started playing a little golf and quite a few rounds together. I'll make this short. We were playing around up in the mountains on one of the mountain courses, and those greens, you know, they're all kind of loopy. So Flo gets on the green, and I hope I get the right names here. She gets on the green. She's probably 30, 35 feet from the hole. And Cal looks at her and he says, "If you make this putt, babes, we're going to make whoopee tonight." So, of course, I wasn't expecting that. Wait. The ball hits a really strange spot on the green and veers way off, and she misses by about 15 feet. He says, "Close enough."
For the record, his wife wouldn't let him tell that story, and I made him.
Sorry, I'm not sure I can follow that one up. That was great. I come here today as part of the bridge community, and I see, you know, I'm an engineer, so I'm like calculating percentages. I think there's probably about 82.5% of people in the room play cards. Is that about right? Anyway, as part of the bridge community, thank you to the Newlin family for having this. I mean, Cal is an amazing human. Everybody's talked about his love of golf, his love of cards, his love of the Broncos. I want to talk about his love of his wife and what they were like at the table together. Any bridge player partnership that came to the table to play against Flo and Cal knew they were not getting good boards. Just wasn't going to happen. But there was a time once we came to, and you never argued at the table together. There was not a disagreement. Could have done something better, like Ed said. Could have done something different. Rob and I came to the table one time. Pretty normal thing. And Cal did something unusual, and Flo went, after the hand was over, and he went down, she said, "That's not our agreement." I want to tell you, it was one of the few times they didn't agree on their love, their partnership. Cal is going to be missed by our bridge community tenfold. Going to be missed by Flo, uncountable. I want you to know that the bridge community is here for you. We love you, and he will be missed forever.
I got it.
And I think we're running somewhat short on time, so the people that are up here will.
This is short.
And then we'll have some family finish this off.
Yeah, I'm going to try to explain this photograph, which is right outside the door there on a shelf. And it was a photograph taken in 1994 on the top of Mount Quandary up by Breckenridge. And the reason I know that, the Denver unit had a sectional in Breckenridge in '94, And for the first time that I know of, there were 5 people with the life masters on top of the mountain at the same time, and including Cal and Roger Pinnell and myself and a couple other people that aren't around anymore. But this is that photograph.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm nervous too. But I was one of Cal's bridge girlfriends. And about 2 years ago when he asked me to play, I was really nervous. But I found out that he was very kind in his teaching and also very understanding when I made my mistakes. And only occasionally did he get that look in his eye that said, "What the heck were you thinking?" But where I really got to know Cal was away from the bridge table. And sometimes Flo would be at a tournament, or sometimes Cal and I would just play one game of a tournament. And he would take me off to one of his favorite haunts where there was a food that he liked or ice cream that he liked. And we would talk not about golf or sports, because I know nothing, but we would talk food, of course, and music and books and the city of Denver and what changed and what hadn't, and his family. And during all those conversations, I came to understand and appreciate his very quiet and funny sense of humor, his love of Flo, his pride, and his love of his family. He was an amazing human being, and I think I can speak for all that we will miss him.
I'm Bob Black, and I've had less time with Cal than most of you. I'm just going to tell one story about him. But I would like to say my time with Cal shows what an exceptional person he was. He was kind, he was generous, he was always in control of himself, and much like Steele said, he did not react in any unusual or bad way about his diagnosis. The story I want to tell was the last time I golfed with him. We shared a cart in a fundraiser at Parkhurst. Cal was playing terribly. When he'd swing the club in his practice swing, he looked like a pro. When he got up and hit the ball, it would go anywhere. He never complained. He didn't slam a club, things I would do naturally. He was very calm, looked forward. But what I want to tell you is he parred the last 4 or 5 holes. It was a wonderful round and a great time.
Hi, I'm Fred Herring. I had the fortune of being a partner of Cal on and off for many years. And I want to apologize to the non-bridge players, but I'd like to tell a story of the very first hand I ever played with Cal. It was at a club game, and I opened his spade. My left-hand opponent doubled. I'm sorry, I blew it already. I opened a club, and my left-hand opponent doubled. Cal bid 1 spade. My right-hand opponent thought for a minute and bid 1 no trump. I had what I thought was a nice hand with 4 spades, 14 count. I bid 2 spades, thought, no, this is pretty good. And both opponents, when it was their turn, squirmed around and ultimately passed. So we started playing the hand. And at one point, Cal's right-hand opponent led a spade, and Cal showed out. He had a voided spade. And he had an incredible knack for knowing the right time to do the right thing. And so we played out the hand, and he went down 7. We were not vulnerable, so we had a score of minus 350. And, right. And the opponent's, the standard result for the rest of the room was 4 spades by the other side making 5. For a score of 650. And at this point, one of the opponents said, this should be a good score for us. We can't make anything. And I maybe didn't use much tact. I said, well, you just made a slam. So, but anyway, that was the first hand I ever played with Cal, and I had many more fortunate ones, enjoyable ones after that. Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Sorry to sneak in. No, you get a pass. I get a pass. My name is Diane, and I was Cal's niece. My father, Tom, was Flo's brother. My memory is short because Cal was always quiet and always in the background at any sort of our childhood things. He loved Grandma's food. And the one time I remember, for some reason I stayed at home alone, which you shouldn't let an 8-year-old do, right? I mean, nowadays 8-year-olds do not stay at home alone. But I was probably only, an hour. I managed to drink 6 Dr. Peppers in 1 hour. We didn't have soda in my house. I had no idea if there was a limit. He came home from work. He saw the 6 cans of Dr. Pepper, just me sitting there on the couch watching, oh God, I don't even want to know what. Definitely not golf, Gary. But he just looked and he said, "Do you drink all those?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "House limit's 2 per day." I said, "Okay." And that was it. That was it. That was all he said. And I knew from then on we were good. There are lots of other memories, but like we said, it's time to move on. I know my sister Jan wishes she were here. And we love you.
Thanks, bud. Oh, look at this room.
Wow.
Oh, no.
No, just how many people are here?
Mom said, I think we should probably hit 100. And I'm like, Mom, just the Bridge Mafia is going to be like 150. Are you kidding me?
Oh.
I'm obviously Cal's son, Flo's son. I wanted to start out by thanking everybody for being here. This is amazing. It's obvious how many lives my dad touched from all walks of life. Obviously, as we've discussed, the friendships that he's built over the years through Bridge is present in this room. The family, some couldn't be here, but everyone that could is here. And the outpour of love from them has been unbelievable. We've got people that have flown in. I've got pals that have flown in from Seattle and Arizona and everywhere. Kim's got friends and family from Dallas, and it's unbelievable. So thank you for being here, because we know it took some effort. I wanted to send a special thank you to Jennifer O'Neill, who graciously hosted us today at her beautiful country club, Glenmore. This is great. We were originally going to have my parents' 50th anniversary would have been June 2nd, and we were going to have it at View House down in the tech center. We're like, well, should we just carry that reservation over? And I'm like, I don't think View House Tech Center is quite the celebration of life spot. So Jennifer, thank you. So I'm going to give just a kind of a quick synopsis of my dad to a certain point, and then Kim's going to take over and, give her her thoughts and feelings, and then I'll close this out. So for those of you that don't know, my dad was born in Fort Sills, Oklahoma in 1944. He only spent a couple years there, and then my granddad that I never met and my Grammy moved to Denver. My dad grew up in Denver, kind of, central Denver, went to East High School. As Aunt Kay said, he was a great athlete. And one thing that he told me about, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago, that I couldn't believe this story, because obviously, again, bridge is such a big part of his life. And I asked him one day, I said, Dad, how did you ever start playing bridge? And he said, well, Grammy and Grandpa had this kind of ahead of their times. They had this high-rise apartment with a pool. And I went up there one day, and there were 3 girls in bikinis, and they needed a 4th for bridge. So that's how I learned bridge. And I'm like, I got it. Done. And then I asked him over, some of the most recent family gatherings, he's been telling us a lot of stories about my mom and how they met and how they got married, and a couple of them really stood out. So one of them is they met playing bridge, so thank you, bridge. And after one of the bridge events, they weren't dating yet, but he was in hot pursuit, and he said, hey, Flo, do you want to go grab a drink? And she said, oh, yeah, I'll grab a drink because we have the session coming up in a couple hours. So they go to some lounge off Evans or something, and they have a couple drinks, and then we better get back to play bridge. And they play the night session. And then my dad says, hey, Flo, do you want to go grab another drink after bridge? And she's like, yeah, okay, well, where are we going to go? And he goes, well, let's just go back to that same lounge. They walk into the lounge, and the waitress comes flagging and running over, and she goes, oh, thank God you came back. You didn't close your tab when you left. So super impressive there. And then, oh gosh, I'm forgetting my second bridge story.
When he crash landed?
Yes.
Okay.
So my mom, this was further along, and he was really like my mom. And he owned a piece of land down in Mexico, and he had a private flight with the guys that he owned this piece of land with, and they were going to go down and, I don't know, survey the land and figure out what they were going to do with the land. And kid you not, they take off, and this was back before all the technology. They had ice on the wings, and they crash. And it wasn't, they barely got up, I think, and then they came down and crashed at Centennial, and he was fine. And what he told us was that to go to Mexico, he foregoed to go to Nebraska to play bridge with my mom in a tournament. And the second that everyone was okay, he ran to a payphone, and he called my mom, and he said, Flo, I was just in a plane crash. And she's like, what the hell are you talking about? He goes, remind me of where the bridge tournament is. I'm driving up to meet you.
Fly.
He flew. And the secret sauce to the story is there was another guy that was in hot pursuit, and he knew it, and so he nipped it at the bud and got in there. So anyway, that gets us to where we are today, and I'll let Kimmy take over, and then I'll close this.
Oh boy. So there's so much to say and so many stories to tell. On the day that my dad died, I was very lucky to be there because Gary had called Mike, and Mike and Steele kind of had maybe what we might call a slight intervention. because I had both kids having major milestone events in their own lives. So my son Steele was graduating from high school, and then my daughter Akina was graduating from 8th grade, which sounds like not a big deal, except for in our neck of the woods, it's like everything. And it was a huge deal in my life, in her life, in our family's life. And the timing of my dad's sickness really coincided with all that. And I felt like I really needed to be where my kids were, as did my family. And I knew my dad would have agreed. But there was this 12 to 18 hours that I could miss without really making a huge impact. And Gary and Mike talked, and they said, Kim, you need to fly home. So I did. And the morning I arrived, I could tell that my dad had progressed and that we were close. And he had kind of one eye open, but I could tell he was with me, if you know what I mean. And so I just wanted to tell him anything and everything I could possibly think of that meant something to me or to him. And so that's what we did for about an hour and a half. And I feel like he kind of waited for me. And I don't mean me like I'm so special. I mean me because our family of 4 was complete. Our circle was complete. And in that moment, I knew he was probably going to go soon. And so we talked and we told stories. And as you all know, because you're here and you're so special to my mom and my dad, that my dad was not a man of many words. But when he did spoke, we listened. And as children, and kind of like what my cousin Diane was saying, is he gave you that life lesson in a sentence. You know, I tend to drone on, but he could say it very quickly, and he was so good at that. And so I lay by his side, and I told him a lot of little things that meant a lot to me, and a lot of big things. A few of those. I don't like hamburgers. Never have, never will. He made me a hamburger for lunch, and I promptly, when he went to go mow the lawn, buried it about 6 layers down in the trash, thinking I was oh so clever. And he came in, and like him, I'm kind of a slow, painful eater, and I was done. And he's like, Kim, did you eat that whole hamburger? I said, yeah. He said, okay, so if I go over to the trash, I'm not going to find your hamburger, am I? I'm like, no, not at all. And I thought I was smart, but he was smarter. So he went all the layers down and found the damn hamburger. And he said, you know, Kim, don't lie to me. And I said, well, Daddy, don't fix me a hamburger. I told him when we were laying there, I said, Dad, you know, I hate hamburgers, but I love the smell of a hamburger because to me, that's you. That's you on the back patio, and that's you grilling. He taught me how to dive. So I was in swimming. I was a swimmer, and I was in a race, and it was to qualify for the finals. And somehow, by the grace of God, I qualified 8th. There are 8 lanes. And my dad recognized potential. He was a swimmer, and he said, Kim, we need to learn how to dive. So he took me over, and he taught me how to dive, so I didn't spend half the race at the bottom of the pool. And when I ran the final race, or not ran, swam, the final race, I won. And it's because my dad taught me how to dive. And from that point forward, I became a very avid swimmer because it gave me something really strong to connect to my dad with. Speaking of swimming, I'd wake up at 5 a.m. and I'm a sleeper. So when he talked about, that was me, I'm the one who slept through all breakfast, still will. But my dad would wake me up at 5 a.m. to be able to go to swim practice, and I would already be in my swimsuit, ready to roll from bed to car to pool. When I hit the waters when I woke up. When I became a parent, I realized that he was awake. He was up at 5, and then he went to work. And the amount of commitment a parent gives to their kid and their interests and their passions and their things that they do are so much more than as children we ever can recognize. So thank you, Daddy, for waking up at 5 a.m. When I was little, he always had a house project. He was kind of a handyman, and he had a shop in our garage. And he would always say, "Hey, Kimmy, come with me to Hume Woods." For a little girl, Hume Woods, for those of you that don't know, is like today's modern, or yesterday's Home Depot. Okay, and so it's a wood store and hardware store, and we would go, and on the way we would play the rolling game, which meant that no matter what, it was a stop sign or a red light, we couldn't stop the car. And so people are honking and getting pissed off and probably telling him the F-bomb, and he's just rolling, turn yellow, turn red. Like, I mean, it's just so cute. Finally, it would turn green, and we'd take off, and I'd be like, "Daddy, Daddy, you did it!" And I was just so proud. And that's when I fell in love with country music, because that long thing gave us time to learn who Ronnie Millsap and Engelbert Humperdinck and the Oak Ridge Boys were, and all these wonderful singers that he introduced me to. And that's kind of when I learned that. We lay in the grass and we'd look up and see what animals we could make from the clouds: dogs, cats, elephants. And he taught me that imagination and creativity. One time I was on the phone, you know, when my generation, not Sue and Keena, the cord stretched all the way across the kitchen, and I was sitting on the kitchen counter and I was talking crap about somebody, I guess, because my dad came up and he clicked the phone and he said, "Gossip is not becoming on you." And I said, "Okay, got it." He was loyal. He loved fiercely. He said what's important. He said it quick, but with words that really mattered. And he taught me if I had something important that I wanted to stand up and that I believed in, to do it, but not to overdo it, because then people don't listen. So make sure when you stand up, you're using your cards wisely. Teaching with us was not a one-way street. I had to teach him a few things, like when I went to go pick him up from the bus stop, because he went to work that day, and I guess Mom was not around when he got dressed. And paisleys and stripes don't go together. And I had to teach him that every outfit only needs one hero. I was Daddy's little girl. I learned when I moved to Texas that your gas tank doesn't automatically fill up. That kind of sucked when I ran out of gas twice. And he would always do projects on my house. And too bad we didn't have a Hume Woods. Home Depot had to do. I remember the day I got married. The night before we got married, the song we were going to dance to played. And it was My Girl. And we got home from the rehearsal dinner, and it magically, God's timing, was playing, and we danced to my song with my mom in the moonlight. There was a picture of us somewhere, and his face says it all when we're at the wedding. The man that I married, Mike, resembles my dad in so many ways. Neither of them are men of many words, but their presence says all that needs to be said. And that is my husband, and my dad knew that, and he loved Mike. When we were walking down the aisle and the doors were about to open, he says, "You ready?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Okay, cool, don't trip." Thanks, Dad. But I knew if I did, he would have had me. My son, Steele, who you all now know very well because he did an amazing job. You couldn't have met a more proud grandpa. He couldn't wait to teach him golf. And we have pictures of Steele when he's won. And he just, was trying to teach him golf. And I said, "Dad, he's won." And in Steele's defense, he didn't understand. But later in life, when Steele took up golf, he and my dad really, really just loved learning and talking and commiserating over every inch of the course. And when Akina was in my stomach, I asked my dad, we didn't find out whether it was a boy or girl. And I said, Dad, do you want a boy or girl? And the politically correct person would have said, a healthy baby would be great. But the thing I loved about my dad is he said what he thought. He didn't say a whole lot, but he didn't shy away from what he thought. He said, I would really love a baby girl. And that is what we got, because my dad had a direct line to God. And so the tender love that he showed my daughter is the one that I grown up with. And it's super special. Mom, AKA Boobsy, or Babe, my two affectionate names that my dad called my mom. I'm going to say this in the present tense. Dad has an everlasting love for you. It will last your lifetime and so many more. He gave Gary and I a love to model after. They almost never fought, and good gracious, when they did, it was always about bridge. There were some knockdowns. I thought they might get divorced. I didn't know what bridge was. His last years were filled with struggle, but he never lost his curiosity in life and his will to live. And when I say he fought to the end, I mean to his absolute last breath. He didn't want to go because he loved us all so much. He was curious and wanted to learn the guitar. So for Christmas, my mom got him, and we're talking this Christmas, people, a guitar. He couldn't even type, but we're going to learn to play the guitar. It was the cutest thing I've ever seen. He's known to be a quiet man, unless you've ever heard him sneeze, or possibly if you've been oh so lucky fart. He would always say he stepped on a frog, and I'm like, Dad, come on now, we can all hear that. And he's just giving me that little smirk. I knew he was listening to me when I was talking to him while he was in his last hours, because I told him that when I got COVID 3 years ago, I haven't smelled a fart since then. And he laughed. Well, I don't know, he had a little smile. And that's how I knew he was still with us. Gary, Mayor, Gary, I'm so grateful that you found your love before Daddy left. Mayor, I'm so happy you got to meet him. And to know why Gary is such an amazing man, because he had the best to look up to. And Gary, although you're crazy as all get out, and sometimes I certifiably think you're maybe need medication. I've looked up to you my whole life, literally and figuratively. Tallest Asian on the planet. Mayor and Mike, you too. Literally held us up. And you've been the most supportive backbones through this time. And we thank you. And thank you for the tender love you've shown to not us, but also our mom. Steele and Akina, the relationships you have with Mimi and Papa and Gigi and Susu. Gigi and Susu are Mike's parents, are so special. And to everyone in this room, I just feel like when you're close with your grandparents and your family, like we all are, your roots go deeper. And these kids are growing up in hard times and crazy times. When your roots are deeper, you grow up more solid because you know who you are. And thank you for making the 1,000 trips to Dallas and for being here for not just Mike and I, but for our children. And Dad was such a big supporter of both of them. And that is such a gift, kids, because not all grandparents are able to do that. To sum it up, my dad was a superhero. He wasn't Dad, he was Daddy. And this to me is not goodbye, but I'll see you later. And I love you to infinity and beyond.
Love you more. Oh, keep going. Hold on. Wait, Gary, it can't bend. Gary, where's the backpack?
Oh, good, I got it.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
So to add on to what Kim said, might be a few points of redundancy, but starting with my memories of just our family. For those of you that know us for a short time or for the duration, we've got a really special family. We've heard it's unique in the sense that it's just the four of us. We were a four-pack, tighter than most families, and we did everything together growing up. You know, Mom and Dad were there for every sporting event, every single one. They were carpooling us all over town. Flo, you need to get Gary to baseball by 3. Kim, swim meets at 4. Cal, you're going to cross over town. I mean, it was nuts. Christmases, you know, all the holidays. It just vivid memories of being at Grammys with Aunt Kay and Barkley and Kendall and JB on the 7th tee of Welsher Golf Course is where Grammy was. Sometimes we go to Cherry Hills where she was a member, and it was just special. We had such a cool family, and on the Japanese side, our grandma brought us together, and we, you know, Diane and Jan and Gail and Uncle Tom, and, you know, we would go to the Buddhist temple, and it was just, what cool memories, you know, that I think about. A couple things that, you know, my dad loved was, he loved Colorado. He loved Colorado. He was meant to be here. He loved hiking. He loved the outdoors. I don't know if you saw the pictures outside. He's fishing, he's camping, he's hiking, he's on a kayak with Flo and, you know, Carl and Ann. I mean, it's so cool to see. And, you know, he really instilled that in Kim and I, to the point where when Kimmy was at Boulder, he'd drive up and they'd go on hikes together, you know, just on the side. One thing that I thought about that's just kind of random, but he was so thoughtful and he was so creative and kind of funky. I loved green tea ice cream. I don't know if you know, but we're Japanese. So we've been to a few sushi joints, and for dessert, a lot of times they serve green tea ice cream. So I'm probably 7 or 8 years old, and all I talk about is how much I love green tea ice cream. Well, they didn't sell it in the grocery store, so here comes my birthday on January 6th, and he says, Gary, there's one more present. You got to go out into the garage freezer and open the door. And I open the door, and there's this huge dryers, 8 gallon that they serve at Haagen-Dazs of green tea ice cream. That thing took me 18 months to finish. And I still think it was the coolest gift he got me. As Kimmy touched on, he was just a hard worker. He was very middle class, very blue collar, you know, and he didn't want to be anything else. He wasn't trying to, you know, I don't know. He just was very comfortable with where we were at, and he worked his butt off, just like my mom did. He was extremely humble, and he loved his family. And, you know, it was felt. I remember my mom saying, you know, if at all possible, the 4 of us, we'd have dinner together. And it wouldn't just be out of practice. We had dinner together, and we would tell stories, and we had a really good time. So a couple things that, obviously, we've talked about food. So I'm going to give you a quick food story. Las Delicias is like, that's headquarters for the Newlins. Always has been, always will be. It's like Kim and I's first memory. It's this little Mexican place that now there's 4 or 5 locations. But I asked my dad, like, Dad, how did we ever start going to LD? And he said, well, he goes, you know, Gary, I had a coworker, and we'd walk up and we'd go to this deli, and there would be this long line coming out of this Mexican joint. And so we'd always try to go there, but we could never get in. And one day we went to the deli, and we had, you know, our 12-inch subs and chips and soda pop. And we're walking back, and there wasn't a line. And so my buddy, my coworker said, well, I'm going to go back to the office. He goes, all right, well, I'll see you later. I'm going to go in and try this Las Delicias. And he had like a 3-plate combo meal after he had lunch, and the rest is history. We had our family dinner there last night in his honor. The other thing is when mom and dad moved into Modena, the assisted living facility that was fantastic. Not one of the biggest perks, the biggest perks was unlimited open kitchen. And to say that Cal took advantage of that is the biggest understatement in modern history. There were times I'd come over, and I would try to come over every single week that I was in Denver, book it. I was coming over to see mom and dad, and I would walk in, and there are 3 cherry pies covered with the foil. There's a pork chop half eaten, and we hadn't even, I just got there, we hadn't even started eating, and Dad had already previewed what the kitchen was ordering. Meanwhile, Mom's cooking our own meal. It was a sight to behold. The other one was his sense of humor. Obviously, he just had the funniest sense of humor I've ever experienced, and a couple things that stick out. One was when I was a kid, Mom would schedule some sort of Nutcracker or the symphony, and my dad and I were jocks. I mean, we were just meatheads, right? So we go to the symphony at the Buell, and we get, you know, an hour in, and I'm falling asleep, and my dad's kind of looking up at the ceiling, and here comes intermission, and we go out, and he go, hey, Gare, great news. We got another half to go. I go, oh boy. Let's see, there was one other story, but I'm forgetting it. So anyway, the obvious one is sports, right? So as a son, it's easy to bond with your father when it's something simple as sports. And as you've heard, my dad's big athlete, and I grew up with a ball in my hands at all times. So, you know, I just have awesome memories of practicing pitching in the backyard, free throw contests, and of course golf. And what came out of that were, you know, after my playing days were over, if you will, I was able to do some really cool things with him. One of them I'll never forget, and I think there was a picture out there of my dad and I. Took him to Wrigley Field. We were able to go to a Cubs game together, and then we took the train over to watch my alma mater, UW, play Notre Dame and he hadn't been in Notre Dame, and he'd always wanted to go. So that was really special. Really close friends. Miles and Jan Cortez and Jeff Salz's team, my best buddy from high school. We were able to go to Super Bowl 33 and experience that in person in Miami. We won, and then the second we walked out the doors, a hurricane hit, and we ran to the van, and we were all drenched, but it was an unbelievable memory. And then the final thing that really sticks out from a sports perspective, I was lucky enough, Eric Yulberg's in the house, and Eric and I were partners at Merrill Lynch for a long time, and my last kind of hurrah at Merrill, I won, or I qualified for this incentive trip, and the options were like Disney World, no thanks, Cabo, very intriguing, and then it was like Park City, and I'm like, well, I live in Colorado. The last one was Pebble Beach. And so I chose Pebble because I'm like, I don't know if I'll ever be able to afford or get to go to, you know, Pebble or do something that cool. So I picked Pebble, and everyone's like, who are you going to take? You know, is it going to be your buddy here, your buddy there? And I said, I'm going to take my parents. And I took mom and dad, and I got 2 rounds, but it was right near mom's birthday, so I let her have first draft choice, and shockingly, she picked Pebble Beach. So dad got Spyglass, but the 3 of us spent 3 nights. We had the what do they call them, the sandbag pipers or whatever, at Spanish Hill, and we had 2 unbelievable days of golf, and you know, we got memories for a lifetime from that trip. The other obvious sports-related you know, thing that sticks out with our family is Denver sports, diehards. Flo Newlin is the most knowledgeable 82-year-old woman. It's unbelievable. She provides information to me. She's got this Google News thing she follows, and she's like, did you hear about the trade? And I'm like, trade what? She's, the Broncos made a trade. They swapped a 7th rounder for a 6th rounder. They got the safety from the Dolphins. And I'm like, Mom, I have no idea what you're talking about. But all the big 4, I have special memories. So the Rockies, they're awful, but Cal hit me up when I was a freshman at UW, and he said, hey, bud, I got us 2 tickets to the first ever Rockies home opener at Mile High Stadium. We were second to top row right field, could barely see what was going on, but Eric Young hit that home run, first pitch. We were there. The Avs, first year, we were on my college. I just graduated from UW, and Mom and Dad flew up, and as my graduation present, they took me to Victoria and Vancouver, and we toured around, and it was an awesome time. But the Avs won Game 4. I think they swept the Panthers, but they won the title, and we watched it at like midnight, right, in our hotel room in Vancouver. So that was extremely special. The Nuggets. Let me put that on. All right, so I broke out some gear because the Nuggets and the Broncos, that was my dad's jam. So my earliest memories of the Nuggets, I was probably 6 or 7, and we were watching Alex English, and Dan Issel, Kiki Vandeweghe, Fab Lever, and once again they lose to the Spurs in San Antonio. Awful foul calls, as always, against the Nugs, and my dad slams his fist against the coffee table, and it just breaks in half. And I'm like, oh, Mom's not going to be happy. I was able to watch a couple playoff games with him in the hospital, and he was so excited. And he would have loved it. He was such a fan, and man, as you all know, if you're a Nugs fan, it's been a rough road. And we know that he was watching with a big flat screen up above, cheering and yelling, just like we were. And we were lucky enough to take my mom to the last 2 games and watch it in person. But it was unbelievable. The last thing is the Broncos, right? So, like Kimmy. He lived, breathed, dreamt orange and blue. I mean, I thought I was a fan. I called the Broncos ticket office a couple days ago because I've known that we've had season tickets in our family for a long time, but I never knew how long. And I heard it was 1960, maybe it was 65. From the inception, and the kid that answered the phone said, well, we don't have the date, but you're priority number 341, and I've never even heard of a priority number that one. So the Broncos are in our blood. Memories of he took me to the Snow Bowl, and I don't know if you all know what the Snow Bowl is, but we beat the Packers 17-14 on Monday night, and it snowed like 2 feet, and we barely got home. You know, I've talked about, you know, the Super Bowl and all that, but I think the thing that sticks out with me most was at the very end, the last month or two before he went into the hospital, I'd go over to dinner with mom and dad, and he would have YouTube videos prepped. And it would be like 22-minute videos of draft analysis. And he's like, Garrett, watch this. And I'm like, okay, Dad. Yeah, biggest fan ever. And just the memories of you know, all of the sports, it's what sticks with me. So anyway, to wrap up, I wanted to mention the ladies in his life, and how special they were to him. You know, starting with my Japanese grandma and Grammy. He was so good to my Japanese grandma. And I remember that growing up, she didn't speak a lick of English. And he didn't speak a lick of Japanese. And yet, he would take care of her, and he would try to kind of understand, like, you know, and they made it work. And it's not easy to have your mother-in-law, you know, lose their husband and then just welcome him into the house for 25 years or 20 years. And he treated her so well, and just, it was unbelievable. And then, of course, Grammy, you know, his mom, I remember, and this is hopefully what my mom feels of me, is I'd see my dad storm out the door when I was a kid, and off he'd go, and he'd get back, and I said, Dad, where'd you go? And he goes, oh, Grammy's air conditioner, it's not working in the guest room, so I went over there, and I tinkered with it, and I couldn't get it fixed, so then, you know, and it was nonstop. He was always taking care of Grammy, and it was something that I was like, okay, I want to do that for Mom, you know, and for others. And then, of course, my sister, who the last 3 weeks or 2 weeks of my dad's life, as Kim mentioned, it was so hard on her because Steele's graduating from high school. Akina's got her middle school graduation. She's hosting all these parties, and she's calling me left and right saying, I don't know, I need to be there, but I don't know what to do. And I said, Kimmy, I got you. Like, I'll let you know, right? And she was just in bad shape because she wanted to be here so bad. And it was a blessing that she was able to be here at the very end. And I did. I told my dad, I said, Dad, I know you love me, but you really love Kim. Kimmy was Daddy's girl, no question. And finally, my mom. It's been said how much he loves and loved her. And I'll tell you, nobody knows what she's gone through the last 3, 4, 5 years, you know, watching him kind of it was tough, and she was a warrior. I don't know how she did it, and I can tell you right now that we would have been having this celebration 3, 4 years ago if it wasn't for her.
Yeah.
He needed pills every 2 hours, and she was there, and she I don't even know if that's a word, forgone bridge, golf, time with friends, because her number one priority was taking care of my dad. And without her, this would have happened a long time ago. And also, it wouldn't have been quality of life. He lived the fullest to the very end because of you, Mama. All right, so to wrap it up, I want to thank everybody that helped out to put this together. Meredith and Roxanne, thank you for coming in. We couldn't have done it without you. Mayor, thank you for being there at the end. I don't think I could have done it without you. And Shannon Salinas, Susie, Frank, Aunt Kay, everybody that helped put this together, thank you so much. And again, thanks, Jennifer. And I'll end with the thing that I take away from my dad the most was he had Parkinson's, and for 19 years he was going downhill, and he's a competitor. And I can't imagine not getting frustrated or not being a baby about it. Like, when I got COVID, I think I called my mom within 3 seconds, like, Mom, come help me. Like, I've got COVID. I need, waters and food. And like, if I've got a cold, I tell Mary. My dad did not bitch about his Parkinson's ever. And the only thing he ever said to me, and it'll stick out forever for the rest of my life, is about a year ago, he was really struggling to move a little bit, and we were in the kitchen of their place, and he looked at me and he said, "Care." He's like, "Man, buddy," he goes, this is tough, and I hope you never have to deal with it, but we're good. We're good. He was an unbelievable man. I love him so much.
Okay, do you have a cookie? So real fast, 2 things. When you leave, you're going to get a little parting gift. To explain the parting gift, when I was little, my dad's weight was like a roller coaster. And whenever his weight was high, he would always tell me he had a chocolate chip cookie butt or tummy or whatever. And his sister, he loved it when she made him cookies. So we have a variety of cookies that we're going to be giving to you. Attached to that is a little sheet. And on that is a link to his playlist of his favorite music. When my dad was sick in 2021, we thought we were going to lose him then. So these last 2 years have been a little bit of an extra gift. And in 2021, he was very anxious because he was in the hospital for a month. And I said, "Dad, let's create a playlist of all your favorite music so that when you're in the hospital by yourself," because it was COVID and we couldn't spend the night, you can listen to that and it can bring you back to center. And so we created a playlist, and over the last couple of years, he would take notes of absolute chicken scratch. I'm still trying to work through it, of songs he wanted to add. And so there's a link on there for that. And when you leave, you'll get one of those. My mom wants to say just a few words, but thank you all for being here. I know this has been a little long, but it's meant the world to our family. So, Mom, you want to speak?
Don't forget the heart story. Don't forget the heart.
Oh. I just can't express how much I appreciate all of you being here. I mean, there is so much love in this house. And I want to thank you all, because Cal must be up there saying, "I'm just a simple guy. How did this all happen?" He didn't know he was so loved. He was funny. He used to make me laugh a lot. And one of the funniest stories, which is kind of a weird story to end with, because our love was something that was beyond unbelievable for 50 years. But one day we're driving, and he hadn't been able to drive the last 5 years or so because he'd get real rigid with his Parkinson's and it was dangerous. But he was driving, and he would always make me laugh because he was so spontaneous with his funny sayings or his response. And one day we're driving, and I said, honey, you know, there's really a funny smell. Did you fart? And he said, not yet. And I started laughing so hard, I was crying in the car. I mean, he would come up with sayings, and then he'd laugh because he thought it was funny too, right? And we would just laugh, and he would make me laugh, and he loved me so much, and he always was unbelievable. But we know why he was loved so much, because this is proof today. You have sat here for, I don't know, forever, listening to us talk and everything else, and have joined us for a very joyous celebration of a wonderful, wonderful person's life. And I thank you, and I love you all, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being here and sharing it with us. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
That was beautiful.
And don't forget to pick up your cookies and listen to Cal's music.
Don't forget your cookies. What else?